Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Luisa Bravo from the Public Space Academy. This is the second keynote lecture that we host as an online streaming event of the Public Space Academy. Thank you for joining. I just want to say that this lecture is recorded and will be later available on the YouTube page of City Space Architecture. Today I'm here with Via Viese.
Hi everybody, I hope you're excited for our second lecture. I think we had a very nice lecture last time and a also fruitful discussion after. So yes, stay tuned and I hope we have a nice lecture together.
Thank you, Via. Also, Egle Pili-Paviciute is here with us today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I hope you'll find some interesting insights today, and thank you for being here with us.
So myself, Via and Egle, we are the team behind the Public Space Academy, and we manage online contents on the Open edX platform and also these online streaming events with keynote lecturers. So today, as the second keynote lecturer, we have Dr. Husam AlWaer, an urbanist with a background in architecture, urban planning, and sustainability, who is currently reader in sustainable urban design at the University of Dundee. He has worked with various UK and international governmental and corporate agencies on research, training, and engagement projects. He has focused interest in the past and future of sustainable places, towns, and cities, including the 20-minute neighborhoods, and in particular the development of new approaches to sustainable urbanism and the way new methodologies are facilitated and managed. So, welcome, Husam.
Hello, very good morning and afternoon to everyone. Join us wherever you are. And thanks for the colleagues and the team in Public Space Academy for the invite. I'm really looking forward to interacting with all of you. Today, I am going to speak about, you could say, a timely subject, a bit controversial subject at the moment. People in UK, Europe, and internationally a bit split about the subject of the 20 minutes neighborhood. So I will be trying to be impartial myself, talking about what's going on in the subject at the moment between practice, policy, and academia. So the talk is not going to be a theoretical one at all, I am afraid. It's going to be a very practice based as well, for the benefit of all of you. But I repeat myself, I will try as much as I can to be impartial because that's quite important. The talk itself is based on ongoing research started around 4 years ago. And there are some publications. I will put them in the chat in the room. I would appreciate if my colleagues in the Public Space Academy could put them available to everyone. What else I want to mention? The talk itself is not representing the view of Husam. I will refer to some key agencies, governments, and practices in Europe and in the UK. So that's quite, to me, important. So whatever you will hear is not going to be only fully my voice. It's really representing a combination of different people. Let us put it this way.
Yes. Just to give few information to those that are attending this lecture, Husam will present his lecture in the next 40-45 minutes. And then in the end, we will have around 15-20 minutes for questions and answers. So please, if you have any questions, you can actually put your questions in the chat if you are attending on YouTube or on LinkedIn. We will collect all your questions during the lecture so that in the end we can ask Husam to answer to some of your questions. Okay, so we leave the floor to you, Sam.
Thanks. The talk is going to be very inter and transdisciplinary rather than interdisciplinary. So I have to move between different subjects and different issues, unpacking the complexity, unpacking what I call it the expected outcomes versus the means of delivery and the challenge in delivery. So that's quite really important. And I will leave it to you, to the audience, to see whether you are in favor of the subject or not. Although I have to admit the subject is not new. If you look at all historical cities and towns in the Middle East, in Europe, in the UK, they all acted in the past as a 15 or 20 minutes towns or neighborhoods. So I just want to echo the subject is not very new at all whatsoever. It's just in a way or another, you're recycling the old norm, basically. We reintroduce it in a different way post-COVID.
So, thank you, Husam. Okay.
Pleasure, no problem. Let me start with the 45 minutes.
Yes, sure. We just leave the floor
and
to
see
you.
how it goes. No worries at all. Thanks for the invite again. Thank you. So what is 20 Minutes Neighborhood? Before I start, it's not going to be only about the physical stuff or social, economic. It will include the social, economic, and environment. So the whole system thinking and integrated approach is so crucial when it's come to how we build, how we design, and how we manage neighborhoods wherever you are. This is the key organizations I have collaborated with over the last 3 or 4 years. But also we have tested the subject itself. We apply it on the ground and we test it as well in research, where here in the UK, but also even in the Middle East when we try it as well in different parts of the world. Now, change, I would like to start with this statement. Change is the only constant in life. As you can see around us worldwide, there is a change in technology design, issue of lifestyle expectations keep changing, keep moving over time. Personnel, politics, climate repairs, energy crisis, the health inequality we face, housing injustice and housing in a crisis, the life costing, the current life costings, the current war in Gaza and the current war in Ukraine as well. So the questions to all of us worldwide, where do we belong when everything's in the move? When it's come to talking about the future? Especially, I would like to say, the future isn't what it used to be. Let alone COVID, but even the future post the Ukrainian war and the Gaza war is not going to be the same. If you look at the current cost of living at the moment worldwide, the inflation, the economic crisis. So there is global risk. Places, neighborhoods or towns or even cities, doesn't matter, especially for politicians, for decision makers. We only look at issues now and priorities from purely economy or infrastructure or jobs creations, or maybe achieving housing numbers or housing targets. We look at planning always as a bad thing. It's about control. And we leave it sometimes to market, but the problem with the market, what matters to the market and the private sector, only short term, the next year or so, or 2 years. They don't have that interest in. So today is a priority, but they don't have interest in most of the time in medium, long term. We know quite well medium and long term is important, but who is responsible and who cares? Of course, when you look at the SDGs, lovely pictures to see, but what do you mean when it's come to the locality of the place? How do we transfer those into tangible matters to the local communities? How do we? Especially we know when we talk about cities and neighborhoods, it's not enough only to focus on number 11. We do need that whole system thinking, because we know quite well if we want to achieve a healthy community, we need to bring number 3 with number 11. If we want to reduce the inequality we face in our town, in our cities, in our countries, we need to bring number 10. If we want really to be serious about it, climate mitigations, number 13 is important. So that's integrated approach is really at the heart of what we do at Neighbourhood. And if you look at the current agenda, by the way, I'm not using the word sustainability. And I don't have any problem whether you call the neighborhood, the 20 neighborhoods or not. Because to me, a good neighborhood is the equivalent to sustainable neighborhood, or even a 20 minutes neighborhood, or even a green neighborhood. But let me show you little phrases are quite crucial when it's come to talking about neighborhood. The livability of the place is really crucial. If you look at Scandinavian countries, always they refer to the livability of the place. So that's quite important in terms of the physical, social, emotional, and well-being. The fundamental values of equity, accessibility, sociability, participation, empowerment. So livability to me is really at the heart of the 20 minutes neighborhood. That's one. And as you can see now, worldwide, a lot of some leading cities, they try really to engage with the livability index created in terms of being stable, better healthcare, quality infrastructure, promoting to culture, environment, better education. So that's one thing. The compactness now becoming so important, especially we know quite well when it's come to suburbia and sprawl, you take more land. You take more land, and most of the time you take agricultural land. And the next crisis to me is the issue of food production, because we are occupying more agricultural land, and this will have a huge impact on biodiversity. No brainer why there is a call now and recall to revisit compactness. Compactness is not about creating crowded places. We need to be very careful. There is differentiation between what is a compact or what I call it a gentle density. In Scandinavian country, they use a lot this phrase, gentle density, which is all about a human scale. We need to start rethinking about the compactness of our towns and our neighborhoods, which as well being encouraged with the usage of clean transport methods and rebalancing the system itself. So it's all about how do we link density with services and facilities, and mixing is important. The third phrase is important, the softness element. When we talk about soft neighborhood, it's about, and this is by the way by David Sim. David Sim, soft, because we all talk, when we talk about city and neighborhood, we always talk about road, hard infrastructure, asphalt, concrete. Well, softness, which is about people, what brings softness to our neighborhood. And to me, we need to bring that comfort, the ease, the consideration. It's about putting people, location, nature, and others people together in the system, rather than thinking about our system just as our system as the systems of hard services and so on. So it is our choice now worldwide. Either more harshness, which is associated with global warming, congestions, segregations, monofunctional, rapid urbanizations, or more softness. And the softness elements of it is really so important. What is it to be a neighbors and being neighbors? How do we build the blocks in order to live locally in this urbanized world? The second one, how do we get about and getting on in a congested and segregated world? The time of our life and where we spend our life. Where do we spend our life matter most becoming, but also the layering life, living with weather in times of especially climate change and climate mitigation. So those three elements I refer to, the compactness, livability, and the softness elements, is really at the heart of the neighborhoods, design, planning, and management, regardless what you call that neighborhood, regardless what you call it. Let me show you something about the UK. I'm sure you might compare it with your local context. Imagine what contributes to the CO2 emissions in a country like the UK and UK cities 26% nearly of our CO2s comes from transportation. And around 23 to 24% is to do with energy supply. So this is quite no-brainer to me. We need to take those statistics seriously. Imagine in Britain, in Scotland, and in England, around 70 to 80% of people who go to works, they travel by car. They travel by car. And most of the time, apart from London, if you look at the map to the right, no, you might tell me why 70%? No brainer. Because the system in London, in a way or another, regardless whether we call it a good system or not, is built around public transportation, plus the fact they have a very sophisticated underground. So no brainer using the underground is quite important, unlike the rest of the UK. Imagine in Britain, 20% of our people, they use the car, 20% of them for under 1 mile, which is, wow, could be cyclable or could be walkable if the system allowed that. Around 40% of people using the car for under 2 miles. 2 miles. That's, by the way, a walkable distance. That's about 10 minutes, and that's walkable distance. We need to start taking those seriously if we are serious about reducing our carbon dioxide, our aggregate carbon dioxide per capita. But we know, and Louisa knows, places are messy, and they are very complex and difficult. And they are very fuzzy as well, concept, our places, and our cities is fuzzy as well. But what we need to acknowledge the importance of mess. And as Jane Jacobs said, we are dealing with organized complexity. And how do we navigate our system within that complexity is quite important. This is, to me, it does require the need for a new narrative. Before I start the narrative, I would like to mention what Gordon Collin said one day. If people live in houses, where do the houses live? I found that's quite interesting. If they are homeless, if we put them anywhere, all we are left with is the typical endless, the futureless suburbia. Why neighborhood is important? By the way, neighborhood as a term is a very fuzzy concept, difficult to define, and difficult to define clear boundaries. Some people associate a neighborhood as an administrative geographical area, like the way local authorities and policy define it, or sometimes it has a subjective definitions associated with the feeling around it. And just let me tell you, one thing is quite important. In the UK and in Europe in general, in Western countries, neighborhood associated with catchment of either the services or elementary school. If you look at the definition of a neighborhood in the old age, 100 years ago, it was associated with the location of either the church or the mosque in Arab world. So that's quite an interesting that normally it is associated with the meanwhile now in the UK it is associated with the catchment area. I really love this definition by David Sim. He said one day, neighborhood is not a place. So it's not about only the physicality of it, but it is a state of mind. It's how we feel about it. It's how we interact with it. It's about the social interaction and the sense of pride associated with it, which could give the collective elements of it. I really like what David Brooks, when they said, it could be that neighborhood, not the individual, is the essential unit of social change. If you are trying to improve lives, maybe you have to think about it changing many elements of a single neighborhood in a systematic way at steady pace. So it's about how can we create a place really built on locality and local quality, which is really made by everyone and shared by everyone. Because if it is made and shared everyone, and if it is to do with sense of pride and intersection, it really always promotes two things quite important. It really promotes the social capital in terms of health, social cohesion, prosperity. It creates as well equally emergence, what I call it emergence, like the sense of neighborliness. Neighborliness. By the way, it took from me a while to understand in English what neighborliness means. I know exactly what was in Arabic, but I did struggle because I've never heard neighborliness. It's how to be being a neighbor, engage in neighborhood, engage in decision making. And sometimes even with that, could be businesses emerged. So this is, to me, is about framing integrally that a neighborhood in 4 key criteria, which is so important. The spirituality of the neighborhood, like a place of what one perceives that neighborhood. It's about the physicality. How do we measure materiality, a measurable materiality? Conviviality, a significant shared, this idea of sharing and participation and cultural of sharing, but also equally the functionality as a tangible and intangible context. But now, what is it, the big idea from a neighborhood? What is it? If you look, wherever we are, in Italy, in the Middle East, this is, by the way, what become the norm of delivering neighborhood, especially the right-hand side, which is all about just transportation by car, encouraging people to own a car and transport. That's exactly what the market and the private sector delivered for us at the edge of the city and beyond, at least for the last 40 to 50 years. And this is exactly what we receive. The way, and this is my questions to all of you guys. What is it? What kind of society we aspire in the next 10, 20, 30, and 40 years? Seriously, because the way you shape the built environment, you shape the society and you shape their behavior and patterns of travel and movement accordingly. This is really quite so important. And I found it quite insane. People keep delivering this kind of solution and they are expecting a different result. When you shape the built environment around a car, this is a direct invite for people to own a car. That's it. If you shape it around the car and the car system, this is a direct invite for people to own a car. And this is what we have with silo thinking and isolation. No mixed use. You isolated the system from each other between leisure, retailing, businesses, working, jobs. And all what we left with is really the use of car. If you look at this image, you could see this image across Europe and across UK. Look at those images. No structure, no hierarchy for public spaces or public realm, or no structure at all for the spaces. In fact, I have done a simple measurement. Imagine on those 4 pictures, in those 4 pictures, 40% of the system goes into just roads and parking. 10% of the pavement, and in fact, those pavement, most of the time, they are waste of time and they are not a pavement for walkability and enjoyment. And the majority of green is very private garden, so there is no intersections with people in terms of really livability. And 23% is building just footprint. And this is the advantage of neighborliness is lost. We have lost that's meaning. And the system you see on the right-hand side created to us a couple of things: decline in public health, limited investment and job opportunity. This is quite important for me statement. When you build a system like this, there is no mechanism and incentive for people to invest on it. Why? Because it has a very low density. And when you have a low density of people, you will find it very hard to justify the investment in facility, services, let alone public transportation. And also, most of the time, this system, because it is monofunctional, only to do with housing provision, there is no jobs, there is no kind of economy. And all the time, it is associated with congestions, pollution, lack of identity. They are a place of in nowhere. They are really placelessness. They are just These pictures could be everywhere in the UK or in Italy. Lack of identity and sense of belonging, and even actually always associated with social association, the social isolation. And I want to say this statement: the people who think the system work for the system. A lot of people think this system is fine. This system is fine. This is quite a good image, because when you talk about city, you cannot talk about cities in isolation. You cannot talk about neighborhoods in isolation from the city. And cities, to me, it should be a city of what I call it short distance, and the cities of neighborhoods, connected, vibrant neighborhoods. We have two choices worldwide when it's come to cities level. Either the left-hand side, what it said the left-hand side. Let us invest in the city center, and if the city center flourish economically, everywhere else will flourish. But the problem, because the city center will become attractive, it will become over time expensive. So people have no choice only to go to the edge of the city, suburbia, and promote sprawl. Why? Because you haven't considered the city as a series of connected neighborhoods. And the problem, the more you widen that the city, the more distance you create, the more that's demand transport, often by the car, and that will require more land take and will increase pollution. Meanwhile, I am not saying, by the way, we shouldn't invest in the city center. Absolutely not. But let me show you what is the right-hand side solution, which has been applied in a lot of German cities and some of the Scandinavian countries. The right-hand side said, okay, let us have a distinctive city center, which may have a different offers in terms of culture, tourism, students, accommodation, and so on. And let us regard our city as a connective neighborhood. Rather than putting all the money in one spot, let us share it across the whole city. So we create a series of neighborhoods in which it has economic, those neighborhoods, they have high street, active high streets, and kind of smaller businesses comparing with the city center. By doing so, you make balance in the system economically as well. And this is, to me, quite important in terms of equity. You shorten the distance, so not everyone needs to travel to the city center by the car. And also, you really distribute, as I said, the money equally, and you really reduce the aggregate carbon dioxide. This chain you see in front of you is quite important. We need to understand this quite fully. The relationship between homes, schools, family care, businesses, services, and working. And how can we link those with, where possible and if possible, using sustainable transportation? So the linkages now is required. We need to start thinking seriously how we link amenity and different services, and how do we link them with where we live, especially when it's come to active travel. I am not against the car. I need to be very careful here. 20 minutes neighborhood is not against the car. It's about how can we reduce the aggregate carbon dioxide per capita and reduce the dependency on the car. But to do so, you must make the active travel a good option for the community in terms of being convenient, affordable, fast, and timely. That's quite important. And hence, we need to start bringing, if I go back to this, we need to start thinking about those three circles on the top. The living, the working, and playing. That segregation between those three is no longer an option if we are serious about climate change, climate mitigation, and sustainability. We need to start thinking seriously about the relationship between those, the home, the work, and the school, and the leisure activities. These diagrams show clearly the negative impacts on daily life and possible additions, burdens placed on public services and town centers when amenities and key sector services are not planned and located close together. This is, by the way, the city of Freiburg in Germany to the left-hand side. This is the early sketch they did 25 years ago. The center is the Freiburg city center, and they try to make it distinctive in terms of what to offer, and those 3 circles around it is the connection, the neighborhoods, and they try to make the Freiburg city a city of vibrant, connected neighborhoods. Not everything can be close in your neighborhood. Hence, this idea of the relationship between the neighborhoods and the city and the region is absolutely important. So what I am trying to advocate, there is no one-size-fits approach when it's come to how we deal with neighborhoods. And it is our choice now, either we go to the top of this picture, which is all about fragmentations, really fragmentation oriented around car users, or we go with that, how do you want me to say, the logical subject of what is a good neighborhood, what is a sustainable neighborhood, which is all about integration, mixing uses, mixing housing with living, with economy, mixing uses, and in neighborhood is really quite so important. So either segregation or more integration, either monofunctional or multifunctional, which balance the jobs with housings. Otherwise, the danger with, if we keep ignoring such solutions, all what you have, commuting by cars, resulting in air pollution and congestions. City like Utrecht now, Utrecht in Netherlands, they really taking this so seriously, to the fact they want to have 2 things, which I found it interesting. Leaving no one behind. Leaving no one behind. How can we create not only compact, inclusive cities for all neighborhoods in their cities? So their cities become a collection of neighborhoods, and they want to concentrate their growth around transit, reliable public transport system, higher density on those red spots, which is all to do with key public transportation, train, tram, and so on. And this is their vision for the next 20 years, really leaving no one behind. Is there any case to make for a good neighborhood and a 20 minutes neighborhood? Absolutely, yes, especially when it's come to health benefit of physical activities. It will have, trust me, walkability, encourage normally, especially for 10 to 20 minutes. Dementia, less dementia by 30%, less colon cancer by 30%, less depression by 30%, and also diabetes by less by 40%. This is to me quite important, and we need to take those statistics quite seriously. Let me share this one with you. In the UK, the physical inactivity cost the NHS, cost our health system up to 1 billion per annum, per year, with further indirect cost calculated at 8.2 billion. This is quite important. Walkability as well could really encourage the economy at local level up to 40%. There will be increase in shopping footfall by well-planned improvement in the walkability environment. So there is economic, social, and environmental case to be made why we need a better environment, especially as well when it's come to improvement of air quality and tackling climate change. What is it now, 20 minutes neighborhood? In a simple term, it is a method of achieving connected and often compact neighborhoods, designed in a such way that people can meet majority of their daily needs within a reasonable walk or wheel or cycling. Basically, why it is 20? Just for clarity reason, it's the first 800 meters, which is 10 minutes there and 10 minutes back. 10 minutes there and then 10 minutes back. Hence, they call it a 20. Now, you might ask me, we have heard about 15-minute city. Yes, the two concepts are a bit different, but they do overlap as well. They have a lot in common as well between the two concepts. This is the 15-minute city. I'm sure you have heard with the genius Carlos Moreno, who invented the concept, the 15-minute city. And this is a lovely slide I came across, explain clearly. I need to be very careful. 20 minutes neighborhood or 15 minutes city is not only about cycling or walkability. It is not at all. For the system to work, livability at the heart of it, in terms of proximity to the essential services, proximity to public transport, that you need to have the right density, the right mixing. The system has to encourage walkability and cycling, the quality of public spaces and green spaces. It has to cater for all in terms of inclusivity, but equally, you have to appreciate that neighborhood is not in isolation. It is part of the city, and it has to be linked to the street or parking. So what I am trying to say, 20 minutes neighborhood is about the livability of the place, more local choices, yes, more about promoting active travel health, but you need the right density and the right mixing. And it's about how can we reduce the aggregate carbon dioxide, but identity and character at the heart of it where possible. 3 key questions here, if we are serious about the concept, is important to address. How far can you walk in 20 minutes? And this will be different from an area to area. Depends on the topography, depends on the context, depends of. So this is why the quality of the space and experience is at the heart of it. It's not about you give me a stop. What is the point? What is the point? You have a bus stop at 6 o'clock in the evening, but you cannot have the bus on time because the bus either is not running or not available anymore. What is the point? You have a doctor, a GB center in 5 minutes from your door, but sorry, you cannot make an appointment. So quality and experience. What is the point having a green park, but that green park is either dirty, no maintenance on it, or it does promote what they call it antisocial behavior. So quality and the experience of the place at the heart of it. It's not about giving me stuff. It's not about existing stuff. It's about the experience as well of the place. So the place is, so the intensity of the use is as well quite important. Is everything you need on a daily basis within that distance? How about the density and the intensity of occupation? Are there enough people in the area? Because if there is no enough people in the area, you cannot justify opening a single shop. You cannot justify opening a school or having even a bus stop. So it's quite important to have this correlation between density of the built environment, but also the intensity of occupation. So this is, to me, 20 minutes neighborhood. It's about a community life. It's about how can we enjoy living locally. It's not about measuring distances here and there. It's not only about cycling and walkability, and it's not about eliminating the car per se. When things went wrong over the last 100 years, we have lost evolution, my colleague, is not always positive. We have that sense of compactness of our built environment and how we shape the configuration of urban structure. By the way, the configuration of the urban structure determines how connected or disconnected the built environment, or how permeable or impermeable the built environment. If you look at our historical cities and towns, if you look at the figure in the middle to the right, it always was around what I call it urban form, which was around block, blot, and the street. Block, blot, and the street. But over time, we have ignored the urban structure we used, and everything's become about big geometry, big distances, and we lost that's how the built environment create a street or street feeling. And this lead to disconnected street patterns and impermeable forms as well. And this is what we have. We moved away from those kind of dense built environment compacts. It's all about the blot and the blot related to the block and the block create a street feeling. And then we went to this massive distances with very fewer built environment or building footprint here and there. We really need to start thinking so seriously about this, the relationship and the hierarchy levels of related parts between buildings, plot, street, and plot series. And this is why I am a big fan of how the Dutch and Scandinavian countries now really paying more attention to the plot master planning rather than just a block. If you think about these two diagrams, to the left, you deal with that green as if it is one building. Meanwhile, in the Dutch mentality, no, the block, this is a block to the right, and the block has a series of plot and create a street feeling. The beauty of this system, it shows it is adaptable, it is resilient, because it is open to change over time. So those little small houses could change, even their function could change if needed. So we need really to start taking this idea of block, plot, and street so seriously. Otherwise, we keep delivering what you see. This is what they call it in the UK, the road engineering concept of a tree-like street network. This is what we do, especially in suburbia and rural contexts, which has resulted in unconnected, illegible roads rather than streets. Trust me, guys, there is no connection, no street feeling around it. And that's what the conventional suburbia you see even in the United States. What relationship between environment? So we need to really think carefully about the behavior and the 20 minutes neighborhood. Jan Gehl one day said, people don't change behavior when you tell them to. People change when the context combine them to. If you create a context very car bias and oriented, will be the quickest choice for people. If it is all to do with walkability and cycling or using public transportation, it will be. So behavior and how to change people and community behavior is so important. But to change behavior, you need to get the right context for behavior in terms of being convenience, reliable, affordable, and time. People want to reach from A to B on time. So the role of active travel is so important. Otherwise, I am afraid this is what we keep delivering in Europe and in the UK and even in some part of the Middle East. So this idea regarding the urban environment as a connected tissues in neighborhood is so important between the plot and the block, relationship with public realm, the massing, the right massing uses, roof strategy, active uses where possible is at the heart of it. Is there any economic case for the 20 minutes neighborhood? Absolutely, yes. At the heart of it, local economy. When you have a local economy based on local, you create kind of resilient places. Why? Because you keep the economic flow and you circulate the economy locally. And normally, a lot of places where the economy based on local, normally they are not affected by any, how do you want me to say, economic challenges. Why? Because their economy is not based on big economy or big brothers, as they say. Hence, to me, local economy really matter most, especially if it is related to the local. And if you think about it, post-COVID, there is now new trends when it's to come, how to use places and the spaces. We start saying we are moving away from what I call it the old siloed mixed use into more connected activities and facilities, but blinded. So there is now there is desire by private sector in the UK and Europe in mixing hospitality with health and well-being, working, making, residential, with even no blinds, no barriers. This kind of public realm activations in spaces become really so important to me. And that's create a local trends actually, and a lot of even big brands becoming interested, especially with the local activities owned by locals and by neighborhoods. So the healthy economy in a neighborhood shouldn't be only based on a big brothers. Instead, it should be as well create that sharing economy at local level. And to me, collaboration and participation is at the heart of it. This idea of mixing of uses of activities between food, transportation, uses, selling, making, working, really becoming now a new trend, you could say now. What is the right density? This is quite really very fundamental questions. People keep asking me here, even decision makers, what kind of density and intensity of uses are really are suitable for to deliver the 20 minutes neighborhood. There is no hard and fast rules on how to deal with density. You go to some places, they have high density and they looks beautiful. And sometimes you go to very low density and they do look beautiful. So there is no hard rules. However, what I want to say, people perceive density differently. But the density can really influence how you could behave and act and how you respond emotionally to others. So it really has important impacts on things like quality of life or even the mental and physical well-being. Sometimes what is low density for some is high density to others. So place-specific solutions are required. So what I want to say, density is more visual rather than just we use it as a number. So density is an outcome. Wow, that's quite important, not a determinant. It should evolve density as a consequence of correlating intensity of the occupations and services and facilities and uses with the accessibility and the proximity to facilities and services. This is my advice to everyone. When talking about density in neighborhood, you cannot talk about density in isolation from the proximity to facility and services, but also the occupation and uses and the number of people who live there. That's quite important.
Husam, sorry, we should close in your lecture in 5 minutes so that you can also answer to some questions from the audience.
No worries at all. No worries at all. So, wow, this important picture is quite important to get it right. This is Atlanta in United States with very limited investment in infrastructure to do with public buses, tram, and transportation. It has nearly 5.5 million now people. It covers, wow, 7,700 kilometers square. Imagine, the transport carbon emission per capita is nearly 7 tons. Meanwhile, to the right-hand side, it is Barcelona, the same size, nearly 5.3, 5.5 now. It only covers 650 kilometers. Wow, that's only 10 times. That's 10% of Atlanta. And the transport carbon emissions per capita is only 1.16. And guess what? It's based on a fantastic concept, the super blocks models. Very human scale. If you look at those blocks, that's what I am referring to. That's called the blocks. And the blocks is a series of plots. And the height of it between 5 up to 6 floors. That's what they call it a human scale. And the beauty of those human scale, as you can see, very compact and very generous on what it gives in terms of quality of spaces, either the street, because the block meet the street, or the common garden in the middle. Recently, the mayor, because the block keep evolving over time. This is what I like. There is the resilience of this concept when it is based on the block and the plot. Recently, the mayor did something rather interesting. They try now not allowing people to drive through those blocks, through not 3 by 3. So all cars are banned by entering the center of those 3 by 3 blocks. And instead, he claimed all the spaces in between and he gave them back to the society, creating public realm and very generous green spaces and so on. And that's what they have achieved to the right-hand side. What is good density? In the UK in general, the density is around 15, 20, 25. What I am a big fan and advocate, the middle density, what I call it, the human scale, the gentle density between 45 up to 60 and beyond. That's quite important if we are to save the land. Louisa, I know I am running off time, but just I want to show a couple of important slides before I finish off. This is quite really...
Yes, sure, no problem.
This is really quite so important that when it's come to the density. If you look at this figure, the one in the top, it is a tower, unfortunately in nowhere. Just a tower, came from a helicopter and you just located in nowhere. No engagement with the street, no engagement with the green, very car oriented. It managed to produce 75 units. The one in the middle, it is as well 75 houses, but as well very car oriented. It's not about the place. It's not about the block and the streets and the plot. That's to me the business as usual, the one I showed you earlier. The one at the bottom, wow, it's again 75 houses, but it's based on housing types and typology, based on the block. You see, the block divided into a series of plots, and the block meet a street and create street failing. And in the middle, there is diversity in the houses. Some with the private garden, some with the common garden. So there is that hierarchy of the space is quite important. So it's our choice, guys. It's really our choice which one we want to go with. I will skip those and let me show you one thing's important. Yeah, so the right mixing matter most. Yes, you need to diversify the system, because if you make the system monofunctional and for one type of community, like the rich, facilities and services will be tailored to be for the rich. So how we mix as well the different types and how do we facilitate that complexity? So because if you make it monofunctional, you have a monofunctional community. We need to have a multifunctional houses with multifunctional facilities and services in order to have a multi-communities and different communities. So the right mixing matter most if we want to have a mix of people. How do we facilitate that complexity in terms of price is really important. Also, when you have a low density and when you have spaces, this is quite revolutionary. Louisa, I have been asked, what happened if we have smaller community here and there, scattered here and there? What do we need to do to bring them together? Here in Scotland and working with colleagues in Scandinavian country, we invented what we call it the rural, especially in rural areas where you have a low critical mass of people and built environment. How do we create a network of villages? How can we establish linkages between those smaller villages so they start supporting each other? Especially each village may have a different facilities, especially the historical one. So how can we make most of what we have? So they start supporting each other and they start standing together. And also my colleagues created this idea of clustering of villages. So some villages may have a market or sports hall or schools or post office. Others may have a nursery or pool or library or a pub. How can we link them and create a connected communities? So they work rather than they are isolated. We link them so they benefit everyone and we circulate the economy. That's created trust and shared and ownership over time. Also, quality matter most, as I said. The destination, the quality of the amenities, and the journey, as well as the proximity. That's really so important. And this slide is so important. The successful local living is not only about the existing of stuff, it's about the quality and the experience of those stuff, and especially from the community perspective. And this is to me what is the advantage of neighborliness. We need, my colleagues, to reinvent convenience, either in the new neighborhood we created or in the existing one. And Jan Gehl, use those fantastic criteria of protection, working with the weather, creating comfort, but also enjoyment. And I want to finish with what Kevin Lynch one day said: nothing is experienced by itself, but always in relation to its surrounding. The sequences of events leading up to it, the memory of past experience. Public spaces is at the heart of neighborhoods, and they are the DNA, especially to me, active high streets and the experience of a ground level. And the place which support that spatial hierarchy of parks, nodes, streets, squares, and lanes. So how can we create public spaces as a network, but equally as a destinations? And I intend to show you this, this diagram. There is now movement, especially in Scandinavian country, to have a good proportion of public spaces, up to 25-35%, the one to the right-hand side you see, rather than too much public spaces. And we have seen this in Malmo now, how they use this philosophy there, which really could encourage the places for sharing and creating what I call it physical settings for informal social interaction. So to me, what is matter here, that's intersection, as Jan Gehl said, between the built form and the public life, between the physical stuff in terms of infrastructure, streets, public spaces, buildings, but also the behavior and uses and patterns, the culture, the commerce and exchange between the day and between the night. Shall I finish with this one, if you allow me?
Yes, sure.
I will finish with this one because this is quite important. This is really quite important slide from Copenhagen. If you look to the left-hand side to the bottom, the orange color showing you the distance between A to B on bike in Copenhagen. This is at the heart of Copenhagen center. It takes only 13 minutes. Wow. In metro, the same A to B, around 30 minutes. By car, around 40 minutes. 40 minutes. This is why 70% nearly now of the inhabitants in Copenhagen on bike to work and to study. Why? Over the last 30 years, the council invested heavily on creating a quality infrastructure where it is faster for you to use comparing with the car. And it is cheaper, more convenient, and quicker. And the figure here show you a survey 4 or 5 years ago by people in Copenhagen. They said 60% of them, we bike and we use the bike on daily basis because it is quicker, safer, and convenient. 20% it is good exercise, 6% inexpensive, and guess what? Only 1% it is good for the environment. So this is what Jan Gehl said. People don't change behavior when you tell them to. People change when the context combine them to. Let us create the right environment for our future generation, which encourage them to live in a sustainable way. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Husam. Very interesting, your lecture, and the need to shift from, probably a global vision on cities and urban environments and be more sensitive, attached to neighborhoods and places. I think this is very important also in regard of the work that we are developing with the Public Space Academy, because public space, as you said, it is at the heart of this new way of thinking, but also designing solutions for existing and future generations. I see that there are comments and also questions, so I'm inviting Egle to actually moderate the Q&A with the audience.
Thank you. Thank you for a very inspiring and moving lecture, and keeping us curious and finding ways how to transform cities and to make them made by everyone and for everyone. So we have a great turnout today. Around 50, 60 people from different platforms have joined us. And I would like to proceed with some questions. Probably we can start with the question from Carina Puente Francen. So are we coming back when talking about 20-minute city? Are we coming back to think about cities as our medieval cities, how they were planned, or even Roman cities? So basically, we are relearning those principles. Maybe you could comment on this.
That's a really very good questions and interesting questions. I'm not saying we should go back. I'm not sure where, but I don't have any problem by revisiting the past. Absolutely, yes, revisiting some of the principle of the past. But to me, we shouldn't just. Shall we call it 20 minutes neighborhood? Shall we? I'm really not. How do you want me to say? To me, it's not about the title. It's about the core concept. But just we need to be careful about what we mean by the subject, and is it only about transportation? The answer is not about transportation. Yes, I am a big fan of compactness. We can't afford to keep just occupying green belts and green lands in Europe and in the UK and elsewhere. We cannot really. We cannot. Actually, it's no longer an option. We need to start thinking about more compactness and closeness and proximity in order actually to be serious about sustainability. So yes, maybe we are visiting some of the basic principle, which maybe we have forgotten.
Yeah, it's a good question for sure, and it's interesting to see how we're developing these new or maybe old concepts. Now, I would like to proceed with the question from Raida Deb on how digital transformation can influence this 20 minutes approach and the initial concept.
That's a very good question and an excellent one. There is tendency now in the UK and in Europe, people spend on average around 2 days a week working from home. We're really working from home. To me, that has an advantage because people start really staying more in locality. But people discovered, the locality may be not good enough to work from home, i.e., you need high quality broadband or high quality internet. You need sometimes the spaces at home are either very, how do you want me to say, there is no offices or there is no enough spaces to work from home. So it comes with its challenges, this idea of the digital delivery and digital productions. Equally, some offices buildings now in the UK, there is a question mark. If people start working from home, what will happen to our offices buildings? So there is no clear answer yet, but this subject is debatable at the moment, especially as well in rural contexts where the digital connection is not that strong when you compare it with the urban context. It's really an interesting question. There is no clear answer for it yet because the subject really is keep moving. But yes, working from home become a reality and it start really have an impact on the built environment because more and more people now want an office in their house, and that's sometimes not an option.
Thank you very much. Now, if anyone still wants to ask something, please go ahead and post your comment. In the meantime, maybe I can give a question to you. You demonstrated how important it is to look at the local level and zoom in, thinking about 20-minute city and planning. So where we are right now, and how do you see how fast or slowly you see administration adapting this concept and this approach towards the more local planning.
From the UK perspective, if you allow me to say, and Europe a little bit, there is fear from people, unfortunately, that's, oh wow, 20 minutes neighborhood and 15 minute city, you are restricting our movement and you are creating cage. So we are as if living in cage. Oh, you are making a war against car. So unfortunately, the concept become a bit fluid, and I'm not sure whether it has been communicated rightly with local communities in UK and Europe. So I could tell you, hence community and even politicians are split around the subject, and they link it with conspiracy theory. If I'm sure you may have heard about it. I don't think there is anything wrong with the subject itself, but I think the way it has been communicated, I'm not sure whether it was communicated rightly with people. So that's things. So, and it's really, I hate it when people think it is a war against car. My advice when it's come to planning, incremental approach to urbanism is so important. You have to bring the society with you. You have to bring, because if you don't bring the society with you, I am afraid people will reject such solutions and the concept wouldn't work. But remember, as I said in my first slide, change is constant and sometimes people resisting change. Another things, it will take time, and this is why I did show the example in Copenhagen. It took 20 to 25 years to Copenhagen to reach this milestone. It took 20 to 25 years of investment to Freiburg city to have 30% now, only 30% of people in Freiburg owning a car. It took 20 years in Utrecht to have, to have 100,000 people using a bike a day. 100,000 inhabitants using Utrecht, using bike a day. But that's take time. This is why we need to be careful. We need to have a bold vision, and we need to bring the society with it. And I am against doing things in rush. It has to be incremental.
Well, thank you, Sam. And I see from the slide that you are showing here that we also need to consider urban nature. And we talk now a lot about nature-based solutions and how to bring back nature in the urban context, because this is also important in terms of climate change and the idea of designing climate responsive environments.
Exactly.
Yes, this is well part of your
exactly.
neighborhood concept.
If you think about the
I think we lost Husam now. Can you hear Husam? Can you hear me? I think Yes, I think we lost Husam. Yes, while he was answering. Yes, I don't know if we can manage to have him back. I think he left. Yeah, sorry for this. No, he's back here. I think there are some connection problems for Husam. Let's see if we can have him back. Yes, sorry. We always face technical issues.
I am back now.
Yes, we actually managed to have Husam back. We cannot see you, but maybe we can hear you. No, probably. No, we have a problem in terms of connection, I guess. Yeah, he left again. Okay, so I think, well, it's not nice actually to close these lecture like this. Let's see again if he can join. No, we're having problems, so probably we should close this session. Maybe you can say, Via, while we try to restore the connection with Husam, how many people you actually counted attending these lecture today?
Yeah, it seems that we had quite a good turnout. I think we had around 60 people today with us. So that's encouraging. It looks like on all the different platforms that this is being streamed, that people are connecting. So that's good to see that people are finding different ways to join the Academy.
Yes, yes. And I see that there are still some comments and people are trying to reach out with comments and questions. Unfortunately, we're trying to have Husam back with us, but I don't know if the camera is working for Husam or not. It seems it is not working. Sorry, I'm in touch with Husam by phone, and he's trying again to join. Maybe we can read some of the comments.
Yes, we have a comment from Albina YouTube channel, Abhina. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right. She's commenting on diminishing neighborhood bonds in rural areas. She's seeking for some insights from Dr. Husam on the trends and how this trend might evolve during the post-COVID times. That's a very interesting question, and I hope that we can get Husam back online.
Yes, he says that he can hear us, but we cannot hear you, Husam.
Yes.
Now that we have more comments and more questions in this chat, it's such a pity that we cannot have you back on screen.
Yes, so we also had a comment about the environmental aspects and some interesting insights that how the road infrastructure should be changed. We should look more into the materials we use in the city to tackle climate change.
Yes, so this is very unfortunate that we have to unfortunately close the lecture since we are not able to have Husam back with us. Thank you to everyone who attended this lecture. It was very nice to have you again with us, and we hope you will be able to join also in the next lecture that will be announced soon. This will be the March lecture, and we are also planning already the April lecture. So follow us on social media and also subscribe to our newsletter to be always updated regarding upcoming activities and events. And please get in touch if you have any questions. So thank you for joining today, and we hope to see you soon. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye everyone.